if there's no questions, let's continue now, because now you understand the definition of the unemployment. Now, let's try to generate the aggregate supply. Remember when we discussed about ISLN and then the GDP by expenditure, you end up with aggregate demand. So let's do the same thing now, using the labor market to generate aggregate supply. So let's start by simple definition, which we just talked about 1 minute ago. Unemployment is nothing but the difference between the labor force, L is the labor force, and those who work, the employed, that is N. So basically L minus N are the number of unemployed over the labor force. That's the unemployment rate, right? So that means I can write unemployment rate equals to 1 minus N over L. Okay. So since we are talking about labor markets, let's assume now the only input is worker, because we are focusing on labor now. So if the only input is workers, then you can say that the number of the level of output is the same with the number of workers here. Okay, this guy. Okay. So with this simple definition or assumption, basically I can derive the following here. Remember, originally this is U. So F within bracket U. Let me go back to earlier here. You see this? U, right? F, U. But now I can replace the U by, I replaced U by 1 minus Y over L from here, basically. Okay? But still, remember, the relation is still negative, like in the case of U here. It's negative, right? But at least now I'm having a component in which there is Y here. That is my goal here, because if I write U, I still do not know what happened with Y, which is the level of output. But now I have Y here, okay? And that is equals to this. That is from the price setting equation, okay? So with price setting and the width setting, when I combine, basically I have this, right? This is simple substitution. But remember, I already replaced U with this guy. So then I can rewrite this guy to become this guy. So now the level of price equals to the expected price times 1 plus the markup times a functions of, remember this is U, but now 1 minus Y over L and the institutional factor C. So this is the key equation. Why? Because it is this equation that led to the formations of the aggregate supply curve, counterpart of the aggregate demand curve, which we discussed the last 2 weeks. Okay. So let's see. Let's observe this equation. Here I have Y now. It's no longer U, right? And remember, the whole component here has a negative relation with P. Why? Because the sign is negative here. But Y here is already negative. So negative times negative, that means positive. So that means the relation between the relation between Y and P is positive. The higher the Y, the higher the P. That is exactly the aggregate supply for this guy. So the higher the Y, the higher the P. Positive slope. So now you can nicely combine the aggregate demand, which we discussed the last 2 weeks, with this aggregate supply. That is the essence of the macroeconomic workforce model when they talk about aggregate supply and the aggregate demand. And once you do that, you can play around with any policy shock, whether it's monetary policy, fiscal policy, and so on. In fact, I have a couple of example of the shock here. Here, this is one example, monetary shock. Okay. So suppose the money supply M is increased. Okay. Then we know the real balance will go up. Okay. And if real balance goes up, we learned from last week, aggregate demand shift to the right. Boom, from AD to AD prime, right? Now, with the shape of AD to AD prime, we know the output level goes up from Yn to Y. So Y increased. But today, we also learned something new. Because of Y increase, following the aggregate supply curve, price will go up also. So price goes up from P to here, what I told the level here. Okay. But remember, if price goes up, the expected price also go up. Just imagine like this. Suppose today the inflation is high. Okay. Let's say most of the prices goes up by 5% today. What do you expect? What do you think the society expect in terms of the price next week or the day after tomorrow or 3 days from now? There is a possibility that people expect that the price will continue to increase, right? Because of the inflation today. And that is the reasons why the PE here, which is the expected price, also goes up. So whenever the price now goes up, the expected price also goes up. And according to the wage setting equation, if the expected price goes up, wages will go up. But remember the second round, when the wages goes up, the price in the next period will go up at P plus 1. And that is the reasons why, even though the original equilibrium moved from A to A prime, or the price goes up from P1 to this level, but because of the expected price increase, price at the T plus 1 is higher further. So at the end, this is the level of price. And guess what? If the price goes up according to the aggregate demand, output has to go down. So it's almost like a round trip here. From Yn, output goes up Y, but then they go back to Yn. Why? Precisely because the price increased. Precisely because price changed. Now, remember at the beginning of today's class, I mentioned some conclusion that I taught you the last few weeks, which you learned, may not be the same. This is a good example. Because in the past, I mean before today, when I said if there is a shock in the aggregate demand, in this case monetary expansion, we know the output will go up from Yn to Y, and you stop there. But thank God, now we learn there's another market booking, and that is labor market. And through that labor market, if Y increase from Yn to Y, price will go up. And because price and wages is working, in tandem, then the increased price will continue to increase in the next period at PT plus 1. And that's why the equilibrium is moving from A to A prime to A double prime. Now, this case is well known as the case to demonstrate money is neutral here. So basically what it's trying to say is that increasing the money supply does not help to increase your output. It only increases your output in the very short run. But in the medium run, the output level will go back to the natural level of output. Is that clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so I hope you understand now the difference between before today and today. So I can give you the same shot last week.
Sir, sorry.
And yes, yes.
Actually, in your previous slide, you mentioned about y, and y it's already minus, so it's going to be positive relation with price. I don't get it. Why it's already minus?
Oh, okay. Let's go back to here before. Let's say. Let's go back to the earlier. Here, okay. This is the first chart for today. Actually, you understand this, right? So the relation between U, which is the unemployment rate, and W is negative. That's why I give the negative sign in red there. Meaning what? Meaning the higher the unemployment rate, the lower the wages. Or the lower the unemployment rate, the higher is the wages. Okay? Is that clear? This one?
Yeah.
Or you still have questions? Okay. Now, I did some substitution here by assuming workers are the only inputs here. So y equals to n. And then the simple algebra, this is nothing, sophisticated, it's just high school algebra, substitution. So at the end, I got this. So remember this guy, can you see my cursor here? So all this guy, in the first chart, it's called U, unemployment rate. So this guy, so the U now I replace with this guy. Okay, so now I have this instead of U. But the relation continues to be negative. So the relation between all this component with the W here, I'm sorry, with the W here, yeah, it's still negative. So this relation between this and this is still negative. So that means here it's still negative here. So after I do some, the equalizations of the price setting and wage setting, I got this equation. So that this U is still negative. I didn't change anything. It's still, we follow from here basically. It's still negative here. But now I replace this U with this 1 minus y over L. So here is what I got. 1 minus y over L. So let's analyze. The whole 1 minus y over L relation with P, let me read it. The relation between 1 minus y over L with P, with the price, is negative. So what does it mean, the relation between y, only y, with P? Well, if the whole 1 minus y over L is negative, and here is a minus y, that means the relation between y alone and P is positive, right? And that leads to aggregate supply. Is that clear now?
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
All right. So I was saying that this is a good example how the introductions of the new market, in this case labor market, changed entirely the story here. Okay.